Our prime minister should be held to a higher standard than us as individuals and citizens. And as a country, don't have the balls to say anything to him. Like, he should not be our prime minister, or he should have disclosed the stuff, but nobody's policing it. I think it's criminal.
Welcome back, everybody, to the DC Talks podcast. This is episode 133. We're back at DC headquarters with Mr. DC himself. How you doing, sir?
Doing all right. Yourself?
I'm blessed. I'm fantastic. You just came back from an amazing trip in Greece. How was that?
Unbelievable. Yeah, it was.
This is the first time we're recording because you just came back last week, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. So not even a week ago. Right?
Watching on your
tomorrow,
stories.
Yeah, tomorrow will be a week. Yeah. So, and it's the first trip I've ever been to where we actually posted, like, when we go away. I don't like to people know that we're away, but within the first day, like, we went to our good friends at Revolver, like the couple there, they got married, so they invited us to go to Greece, and we're going to Greece. Like, our whole family went. There's only 60 people at the wedding, and it was the most gorgeous wedding I've ever been to in my whole life. Like, we're talking, like, I've been to a lot of amazing
The
weddings.
views looked insane.
Like, I don't think you can understand. We were literally on the top of a mountain, on a cliff of a mountain, like, and it was just the views, the food, everything was just so great. And there's only 60 people there, so
It didn't feel like claustrophobic.
no, and everybody just got along. It's like the whole vibe. It wasn't just the scenery. It was like everything was just together, and it was like by far, like, just amazing, unbelievable.
They always say, like, my friend was in Europe one time and he said the food is just fresher. Like, they eat different ingredients. And
Well, they were saying too in Italy, you can go to Italy or like any of them, like go to any of the European countries. You can eat pizza every day, drink
And you don't
wine,
get
and
fat.
you lose weight because they don't allow glyphosate in their diet, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And also, like, the other thing is, like, their food expires. So what happens here in Canada, right? For example, we talked about, remember we had that food production, that whole episode.
Yeah, I remember that.
So what they do is, like, for the shelf life, they remove particles of the wheat and stuff too, so give a longer shelf life. But in Europe, they keep everything in there, so you get all the nutrients that you actually should be. And breads go bad like within like a week or so. Or here, you can have a loaf of bread for like 3 months and it doesn't go bad. Like,
Man.
that's gonna tell you what it's doing in your system.
So there's one time I bought, like when a Loblaws, it's like that 30% off the bread or whatever. And I got it, and the bread was still good a week after. Like, it was still hard, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like decayed or anything like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do they keep? And have you seen that video where, like, they squeeze the bread, like it looks like a sponge?
And then it bounces
It bounces back. Yeah, it's disgusting.
So yeah, our food's like rubber here. Like, so, like, unbelievable. Like, it was funny because when we were traveling to Greece, and we've had a lot of our family members, and heard some, like, Italians are funny when it comes to food, right? And they're like, they love their Italian food. So the whole thing was them, like, I had from my uncles and my cousins, and they're like, oh, you're not really gonna enjoy the food. You eat a lot of pork. And I'm like, I don't eat pork, right? I don't like it. There's a lot of reasons and stuff behind it, but I didn't touch pork once. I had a ton of lamb and steak and fish and everything, and it was just, the food was just fresh. And we went to different towns, and because we stayed in 3 different spots. We started off in Athens, then we went to Santorini, and then we went to Crete and back to Athens and went home. So every place had their own cuisine, and it was all fantastic. So I highly recommend, if you haven't been to Europe in a while, and you should go. It's good. We haven't been since 2018. Well, 2019, technically, we went to the UK. Now, like, our family was a shorter vacation to visit our friends.
But it's not Greece, though.
It's not Greece. Yeah, it's different. The UK is different than the rest of, like, Europe, and, like, we're talking like the Mediterranean, right? The Mediterranean is very different.
Before getting into the topic of the day, what can you share was the biggest highlight of the trip?
I think the whole Santorini part was fantastic because the whole wedding was basically staying in the same hotel. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of stuff together. It was like, I think that was the highlight, I think, for all of us. And at the wedding, one of the groomsmen actually got my daughters to dance, which I've never seen. Natalie and I tried to get them. They just turned 13 and 15. One turned 13 when she was there, and the other one just turned 15 the other day. And they were just in their corner drying, and nobody, like, would try, hey, come and converse. No. They sat for dinner. We're fine. We're conversing. But then they went back to the corner, and Frankie, God bless this man, he went and just grabbed me and goes, nope, you're coming to dance. And they loved it. They started dancing with everybody. That was such a huge highlight. I said to Frankie and, well, his common law wife, Christine, I said, you guys were amazing. Like, Frankie, I can't thank you enough, right? I think that was a huge highlight for us, that the kids actually had a good time. And it was, our kids are introverts, like, kind of sense, they like their drawing and stuff. So when somebody can take them out of their element, to us parents, it's huge, right?
Yeah, it
It's
opens
huge.
a new dimension.
Yeah,
of how
and we
you see
could
them.
do that.
Yeah.
They would never let us do that.
Yeah.
Like there's no like your mom and dad.
Yeah.
Screw off. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm happy to hear that because I always see them and they're always like very like to themselves and do their own thing. So to see that different side of them, it's amazing to hear.
They're starting to come out a little bit here and there, but it takes a little bit, right? So yeah.
Well, topic of the day is what to get everybody into the topic. What we're going to be discussing is the Mark Carney's prefabrication housing plan that he installed back in March of this year. And just a couple of pointers, like he's proposing. He's proposing $12 million in debt financing and $1 billion in equity financing to mass produce prefabrication houses across Canada.
And forgive me if I'm wrong, they're rentals, right? Most of them.
Yeah. So this
This is the problem I had, and I told you it was going to happen between Carney's development plan and Poilievre's. But anyway, go on.
Yes. So what's the stated goal? So the stated goal is to rapidly address Canada's housing crisis by investing in scalable construction methods that can increase supply faster than traditional means. So who does this benefit? It benefits the prefab companies, so modular infrastructure firms like Modulaire, which is actually owned by Brookfield, which Carney chaired.
Oh, surprise. He's got an
surprise.
affiliation with somebody there. Did you know he had his hands tied with, like, Carney had his like affiliation with over 100 companies and he didn't disclose
He did
that?
disclose it, yeah. So when I was
Anyway, I think he's a piece of shit.
when
But
I was
anyway,
researching
sorry.
this topic, like
Sorry.
he is tied in so many organizations that it just seems like unconstitutional for a prime minister to be involved in these many organizations like this.
Oh, surprise.
And we said this back in a couple episodes ago.
You and I talked about
We
this.
spoke about this, yeah.
And
nobody listened.
Nobody listened.
Nobody listened.
And they said, no, he doesn't have any ties and he's fine to do this. And like the backlash to know you're liberals. Listen, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So are we talking about this yet? Oh, yeah, you'll continue.
I'm going to get into so this sounds good on paper, right? But
No, it doesn't.
so to people,
It doesn't sound good on paper at all. On who's this sounding good to?
So-
what is the good that is anything on this? I'm sorry, I'm pushing back on you. I'm playing devil. Where does this sound good on paper?
no, DC, I was going to get into the criticisms of like why this is not a good plan.
But I'm saying you said this sounds good on paper. It does not sound good on paper.
Well, on paper, what
I'm
it
just
means is
saying.
like there's a lot of construction happening, which gives a lot more people access to homes. But
What type of anyway? Okay,
Right.
so let's see the negatives.
so conservatives
I'm
were
already getting angry.
Yeah, conservatives came back and said this does not solve the root of the problem because delays in housing are caused by municipal red tape and zoning, which can take 31-month approval time in major cities. Simply funding construction won't speed up things without fixing city-level bottlenecks. Number two, Canada lacks capacity. So the country doesn't currently have enough factories, skilled prefab labor, or supply chain infrastructure. This could take years before this plant produces meaningful volume. And then there's a questionable cost savings, right? So if prefab was truly cheaper and faster, builders will already be using it at scale. Government subsidies may artificially prop up demand for a system not yet available. And lastly, conflict of interest, right? So Brookfield Asset Management, where Carney served as chair, owns companies that are building these houses.
There's a lot I can unpack there, but there's like, when it comes to prefab homes, because Natalie and I were looking when we
You looked into this?
Yeah. We were looking. So we had a house on Royal York down the street from where our house is now, right? And we had a little bungalow, it was 800 square foot. So we had hired a company to do the architecture and stuff. And I think they were called M Square some of the time. And they had a lot of these prefabbed homes. The cost savings wasn't grand. You weren't saving a ton of money doing the prefabbed homes. And we were also worried about and also you have to stick with certain modulars, right? You can customize it to a certain level, but it's not like fully customizable. That's why a lot of people, aren't there yet. And there's certain things you have to stick in with. So just if you're thinking that prefabbed homes are cheaper, they're not grossly cheaper. It's not a crazy amount cheaper. At least that's what it was back when we were looking back in 10 or 15 years ago, right? So I don't know if the industry's changed, but from my personal experience, it wasn't. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on him owning companies like Modulaire?
Oh, man.
And he's suggesting and actually building this because that's a huge
It's a huge conflict of interest. We've said this over and over again. He's had conflict of interest every single step of the way. He's never disclosed anything. So our prime minister should be held to a higher standard than us as individuals and citizens. And us as a country don't have the balls to say anything to him. He should not be our prime minister, or he should have disclosed the stuff, but nobody's policing it. So I think it's very, I think it's criminal in my opinion. Of course you're going to get your own friends and family in there and try to work along the way and try to grease their palms and grease your own palms along the way. That was a problem we had with Trudeau. You saw how much money Trudeau made in the government because of all the little deals he's making on the side. His net worth went up, 400% or something like that. When I think he joined, he started 4 million, came out with 16 million at the end of his, something ridiculous like that. And it was basically all these side deals that was happening with the companies he's owned. You thought that we were getting away from that, and instead you're not. So when people are saying, I'd rather have somebody who's owns companies or has been in companies as opposed to like a lifetime politician. Well, this is what you're getting. You're getting somebody who's benefiting themselves and their friends, much like Doug Ford.
So to give you a pushback on that, right? People can say this guy had companies, has been in business and everything. And they can say, oh, Donald Trump did the same thing. Is that not the same thing as what Donald did with Trump Tower, Trump Organization, and now Carneys involved in these
But I
businesses?
thought, sure, it's very similar. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I thought people didn't want to have somebody like Trump in there.
Trump in the office.
So the Liberals were voting. I'm going to vote for Carney because he's going to push back, elbows up against Trump. He's exactly the same. Elbows up. Oh, it looks like actually looks like it's bent over and on my knees. It should be what it sounds like to me.
Do you feel like there's been a rude awakening amongst like what?
No, the Liberals, the people that follow Liberals still don't care. They're still like, I still get people in my DMs saying how great they're doing, the Liberals, and we were saying how they're only basically backed in Parliament for like a month, and then they took like a 3-month vacation. Well, they're entitled to that, you know. I'm like,
they was making excuses.
There's always excuses. There's always a reason. You can't argue with. There's some people that are just love the Liberals so much it doesn't matter what happens.
The loyal.
Yeah. So back to this plan, if you want to talk about this, like this is one of the problems we were saying when I was talking about was housing. Remember I said both housing plans weren't great. But the difference between the conservative and the liberal was the liberals want to control who goes in there and they're going to make purposeful rentals. Whereas the conservatives were trying, and they were going to say, give incentives to people, they're literally paying the people to do these modular homes, paying them. Whereas the conservatives were like, I'd rather find purposeful homes, cut the red tape, and decrease the amount of red tape and the money, which causes that so the savings go on to the builder. So it'll go on to the homeowners and looking for people to buy and build their own home. Because the difference between the conservative and the liberal ways here, the conservatives will help build wealth for the country. They're looking for people to purchase properties. When you're purchasing property, it helps your GDP, it helps the government as a whole. Here, all you're doing is you're filling the liberals. All you're doing is filling purposeful rentals, so they can bring in all of their. If it's bring in his 100-point plan, if it's still, I heard he's not going to do his the century plan, bring in 100 million people in the next 100 years into the population of Canada. But who do you think he's going to fill them with? These rentals. So you got to look at the writing on the wall. Who are you catering to? And the liberals, looks like to me, they're catering to people that can't afford a home. So like refugees and new immigrants, which is fine. I'm not saying that, but they aren't actually helping the Canadians which want to buy a home.
Mm-hmm. You said one key thing there, purposeful. What did you mean by that term right there?
So the word purposeful rental means that they're building properties that'll always be rentals. That's what purposeful rentals mean. So like if you've seen some of the condo corporations that, that they weren't selling. So instead of selling it to the unit holders, now they've changed buildings. Some of the builders changed to purposeful rentals. So like, I'll give you one example. There's a big one that's just releasing now on Yorkdale, right across the street from Yorkdale. And it's all purposeful, great size, expensive, like really like 2-3 bedrooms, but they are long-term purposeful rentals. They will always be rentals. Right. And our friend, remember Nick Stilo was on this program. He's transitioned from selling units to purposeful rentals all throughout, actually outside of the GTA as well. And what he does is he works with CMHC and gets them to fund over like 95% of a project. And he builds purposeful rentals. He basically becomes the landlord. He owns, the rights. He collects the rents, and that's how he makes his money. So those are purposeful rentals. And that's what the government's doing, right? When we were saying we had a housing crisis, how does this help our housing crisis? It doesn't. It actually just mars it. We never really had, like a rental problem. We had rental going high, but even now you see there's availability for rentals. A lot of people were purchasing the condos as rentals. So I don't see, that wasn't the problem. building properties for rentals wasn't the issue. What we're having is single family dwellings is a huge issue. Semi-detached townhomes. Townhomes not as much, where you can still have rentals in there, but like we need more detached homes. We need properties for people to want to purchase, right? But the red tape has gone up. I think it was 1,000% in the last 10 years. 1,000%. And Nick talked about this when he was on the program. Their margins haven't changed, right? But the price of units have gone up exponentially. But it wasn't a lot having to do with the builders being greedy. It's like, well, first off, it's taking us longer because of the red tape. So that costs us time and money. And the second thing was, they've increased the amount of fees. So the PC government wanted to move things along quicker, which is good and bad. What you don't want to do is decrease the quality. Sometimes we had that in Toronto, right? I remember a couple years ago, right close to where I used to work at College Park, there were buildings in which glass was falling down. And I don't know if somebody got injured or died. Remember that? And the problem was they were putting, the city of Toronto was turning a blind eye because they wanted to build properties quicker. And that glass was subpar glass. It should have never been accepted as that glass. So there's a little bit hidden things behind the scenes there. So you don't want to get in that kind of situation again. We still want to keep high quality. My friend that's the CFO of Multiplex talks about like our product we put here as opposed to when using the UK. Like it's far, inferior to what they're producing in the UK. Yeah. Like he goes, he's astonished every single time he walks through a building. He goes, how do you let this pass? How do you let this pass? And not even that, how we build on the sites, a multiplex in the UK. You can't get into a job site unless you're scanned. I think I don't know if it's eye or retina or thumb scans. They know every single person that's on the site, on the building site. You could probably pull up to a construction site. When I used to work at electrical, I used to pull up at a construction site with our vans with full of materials, and they would just let us through. We put a hard hat on and steel boots, and you're good. Yeah, even though we were working for the company, but they had no idea I was there. If something would have fell on me or my brother when we were teenagers working for our uncle, they would have never, they may have not known. They're like, it's, whereas in the UK, everybody's accounted for. So the practices are different. We need to sharpen our practices, but the quality and also the speed of how we produce these products also needs to be increased. And I don't believe by doing purposeful rentals, which we have here, is solving our issue.
Yeah. So for example, like let's say Modular, which is the company that Brookfield owns and Carney's a part of, is the plan for them to own these purposeful rentals and you're renting them from Modular?
Well, I believe they're going to be government.
Explain how that works.
So I think they're going to be, it's the government.
It's the government. So you're renting from the government.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
They're government homes. Do you see a problem with this? Right? And who's paying for that? Right, the taxpayers. So what's going to happen to your taxes? It's going to continue to increase. So they're taxing us more and more and more, and we're getting less and less. I'm a homeowner. How does this help me as a homeowner? At least if you're building homes, we're seeing the market pick up and people purchasing homes and condos and like that helps us all as homeowners, right? For a vibrant a vibrant real estate market by you providing these purposeful rentals, which let's see, some of these people may never want to buy a house. I just don't see how that helps the housing crisis. It helps, again, what it does help is helps the refugees that are living on the tents in the parks or in certain areas.
Bad situations and everything like that.
And again, granted, I'm saying, listen, guys, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? But there should be another plan to help. I think if the best plan, is if you would have combined both of them together. You have some purposeful rentals for your refugees, maybe cut down on the amount of immigration that we have coming in here and maybe first of all, build the purposeful rentals to get the people housed before you start allowing those people to come in. I don't mean to sound like Don Cherry, those people, you people.
Take our milk and honey.
But at the same time, help the builders cut the red tape at the same time. Why does it have to be either or? So I just think that his housing plan is not addressing, this modular plan is not addressing helping.
Mm-hmm. What's stopping us from building homes for those who are not educated on the topic, like building homes like the regular way? Because if prefab was already there, why haven't we been using this way of building homes?
Well, the funny thing with prefab is the prefab still takes a long time to build. So when I was listing, I listed a property on Edgecroft, and what's happening now in Toronto, they're allowing multiple units in regular streets, so up to 4 units, and they never used to allow this before. So on major streets, they allow semis. They're allowing they're allowing you to build more than one one dwelling on a property. But now because we have a housing crisis,
Can I interrupt you real quick? Is this what pre-for that one gentleman who came in the podcast that one time, Dominic? And
no,
you have safe in the back, like the garden suite.
this is different.
This is different. Okay,
This is different.
got you.
So in this situation, what it was like we had so they're allowing multiple, like up to 4 units now in a property. My old street on Edgecroft, we're selling that $3.5 million home. We have really expensive homes. We had a bungalow, which was a teardown. We had a company that came up to us that does prefabbed. So their way of doing this prefab didn't make sense to us, but basically, like, they don't give you a deposit. You're basically a partner with them for 8 months. It takes at least 8 months for them to do the permit process and to go into their manufacturing to build it and then come and assemble it. It takes like a week or 2 to assemble it on site, but through the red tape and actually build in their own factory, it took at least 8 months. And what they did was, it was really weird. It was like, so you would basically have to pull equity from your property, give them a loan up to 20% of what the future value would be, and they would use your own equity to build the stuff. And then when they build, they would give you the sale price. I don't know if that makes sense. Anyway, long story short was that the process, even these guys are doing it. They're putting 4 dwellings in an area with $3 or $4 million homes. There's going to be so much backlash on that. First of all, that people are not going to want to see that. The amount of cars.
Is it because it decreases the
That's right.
property?
It decreases property
the
value.
curb appeal of the entire
Of course.
neighborhood.
They say it looks like a regular home, but
Yeah.
it's like when you have 4 or 5 cars constantly in the same house, it like renter, and it's for renters. It's not for
like families who want to buy a house. Yeah.
And historically, renters don't take care of a property as well as a homeowner, right? So now you're gonna have 4 family members in the same lot size as a one single family. There's going to be shit that happens. So theoretically, it will decrease the value of your home. But my point was that it still takes 8 months for it. So the red tape takes some time. So in an average day, you can still build a property in about 8 months, but chances are it's about a year. But a lot of the legalities go back for what you're allowed to do, permits, City of Toronto, right? There's a lot of that back and forth. So and the City of Toronto is notorious for this. They're looking for mistakes. So what happens is you're supposed to be able to get a permit within 10 days, right? So they give you parameters how to submit it, and you submit it. If anything is off, they discard you, and they're like, oh no, you're not, like, and they don't tell you that you're discarded. You have to start the process all over again. For example, you can fill out their PDF exactly the way they say to, but if the page is turned upside down by mistake and you submit it,
It's done.
it's done. It's discarded.
They're that ruthless about it.
Oh, but they're trained to be, because they don't want. This is where the red tape comes in. This is why it takes so long. And I have a buddy that works at City of Toronto, and I have to call him all the time, like, to find out where my permits are. But I'm like, hey, can you find out what's going on here? Because there's no communication. They don't tell you why it's discarded. So anyway, the red tape in the City of Toronto is a huge deterrent for building. And Toronto is one of the worst for that. So we need some help with that. We need some help with the red tape. You can't turn a blind eye. Carney and the Liberals cannot turn a blind eye to municipalities of what's happening here in their municipalities, preventing us from building homes. Why do we have a housing crisis? Well, everyone we said over and over again, red tape, red tape, red tape.
I know you love conspiracies, right? And
Surprise, surprise.
if you look at the guy who's in charge, which is Carney, you've labeled him a globalist in past couple episodes, right?
You will own nothing and be happy.
And this is where I was going with it, right? So if it's going to be government-owned housing and you're renting from the government and this is the future they're planning, it's sort of like putting us in this chokehold where we're relying on their housing. So if you come to the country as an immigrant, as a refugee, it's like now you're at the mercy of the government. Am I right in putting this conspiracy theory like this?
100%. Yeah. Also, when we were in Greece, I'll tie you this in. we're in Greece. We kept getting messages from everybody saying, "Oh, how the fires in Greece and earthquake." And it's nothing. There was nothing there. And the Greek population, that we heard, is like they don't trust the government. Now they were trying to push this propaganda so that they couldn't. This is according to the Greek people when we were there. It was like none of this stuff is happening. You've seen here. We've been to 3 islands, no issues, no fires, no nothing to worry about. But the idea is that they're trying to turn down tourism because they're trying to get. I forget. My wife was telling me they were trying to get like something happen, some sort of construction or something happen. I don't know like what's going on there, but it was a lot of propaganda, and it never came to fruition while we were there. But it did decrease the amount of tourism to the point we were in Santorini where like it was popular, it was packed, but it was like no, this is like there's like 1/3 of what we usually see. So the propaganda is working. How does that relate into Canada? Well, have you heard about like, you know, how the forest fires or something that happened? Like a lot of them are man-made and they showed along the lines. And a lot of them are man-made and you can come at me. And they're saying, well, we're in Santorini. We're looking through. There's a guy he goes, you're talking about the Greek fires. He goes, you've seen all the ones lit in Toronto along like the equator, along the equator, not the equator, the borders and stuff. And the idea was that, and this is where it comes into the 15-minute cities, right? So if you haven't heard what a 15-minute city is, they're trying to scare people into not, basically having everything of your convenience within 15 minutes of where you live. And you're not allowed outside of that 15-minute radius. You're allowed maybe once every month or something like that. You have like a carbon footprint, blah, blah, blah. It all ties into this own nothing and be happy about it. And again, they don't want you on this. So if you're at the mercy of the government and you're living now in these prefabbed homes, you're basically under their control.
Yeah, and this was where the universal basic income comes into play next, right? So I think people don't really understand that this isn't just like a 5-year plan. This is like a 20, 25, 30-year plan. And before we know it, we're going to be like living in this like society. Like,
oh, and explain to me how like as the leader of Canada, you have a housing crisis and you get rentals. How does that help the housing crisis? It absolutely does not help it, right? It just fundamentally, let's look at it like, I don't care who, even if Polyev came out of this, I'm like, dude, what are you doing, right? This is not helping your own problem. But if you have an agenda behind it, you see it's absolutely helping because you're trying to deter people from owning property. And we've talked about this in the past, how BlackRock has been buying up all the properties in the States. They don't want you to own anything.
I know the farmlands too.
Yeah, and Vanguard and those ones are doing the same idea. And then Bill Gates is buying up all the property, all the farmland, trying to control. Like if you don't think it's about control, like those 3 names, look at BlackRock, look at Appeal, what Bill Gates has done with Appeal and all the foods and how he's buying stuff and he's basically poisoning us, and Vanguard, and see what they're doing in the States. They're purposely going in and they're buying properties way above value and that people can't afford to buy in that area anymore. And they're renting it back to them. And now you're renting your own properties back to you. And again, you will own nothing and be happy. Now you're screwed, right? So now you can't participate in the value of your home increasing anymore.
Yeah. Why aren't Canadians up in arms about this, in your opinion?
I don't want to say Canadians are stupid.
Just the general public. Because if they know,
I don't think a lot of the general public knows, or they just. I got to a point where I stopped paying attention to politics because there was so much going over and over again. It was just since the election, I'm like, let's give this guy a chance. There's nothing we can do about it. It's done. Like this guy's like, and I've said over and over again, like the people that it's kind of like the vaccine, in my opinion. They got the wool pulled over their eyes, and now they don't want to admit they were wrong. That's what I'm saying. I don't mean to call them stupid, but it's like, we told you this was going to happen. And now that it's happening, and you can give me all excuse in the world, he's doing a good job and all this stuff. I don't believe it. I'm sorry. I'm not convinced by Carney. There's nothing that he said. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but everything we said he was going to do, he's doing. He's done nothing for me to say, that's my guy. I'm proud of him as my prime minister. He's done not one thing. He looked like a pussy, in my opinion, when it comes to Donald Trump. Nothing's happened. The tariffs probably gotten worse, right? So what about those elbows up, man? Elbows up, elbows up.
As we work towards wrapping up, right? For those looking to buy a house, like what time frame do you give them until like these sort of like bureaucracies and what they're trying to institute? Is it like, do we have like a 10 years, 15 years before things like take shape like this? Or is like buy as fast as you can before this own nothing and be happy takes place? Like,
I keep telling people right now, and I've talked to you about it as well. And, you know, some of the guys who've been on the show and anybody who like would listen, like, you have a great opportunity now to buy. And whether it's buying a condo, buying something, the condo market, it's going to take 5 years to recover. But right now we're getting close to its low point, and it will recover, like fully recover in 5 years. It's been predicted by that. Benny Tal talked about that. Our guy, Sean Hildebrand, talked about it. It's in a cyclical area. So we know that the real estate will come back. And to think that you can be naive that it's going to be, you know, the Toronto's going to stay low like this for a long period of time, that you can buy anytime, it's just a fallacy in your mind. So, of course, I'm not doing this to encourage just to pad my pocket. I do well, guys. I'm not telling people to buy just because I need the money. We're being honest. I'm like, you know, I would buy more condos. I already have 4. I don't need another 5th condo. I already have a sixplex. I'm like, I need to start diversifying my portfolio. And like, so that's why we're looking to buy commercial stuff. So we are still looking to purchase. It's just different types of purchases. But if you're sitting on the sideline thinking when's a good time to buy, like, you're going to miss this great opportunity. And yeah, if you can hold off, purchase something and you're getting a great deal. I've heard tons of people getting amazing deals now. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars less than the seller paid for a couple of years ago. Like, to you, is that not an indication that you're doing well? Sure, the interest rates might be a little bit higher, not as high as they were a year ago. We've gone down 2.25%. So your interest rates are at a regular level they should have been. If you can weather the storm for 3 to 4 years, live in a property, carry it, you know your value is going to go up. So yeah, like I think you need to really consider about purchasing. And now they've also are encouraging people that if it's under 1.5 million, it's a principal residence, you have to put 5 or 10% down. So the incentives are also there. If you're a first-time home buyer, you also get land transfer tax back up to like $8,400. So
like right now at the gold rush, pretty much.
Yeah, like I'm trying, like, and you don't want to be that person on the side that said, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. Yeah, and I feel a lot of people are going to be like that.
Yes, great way to end it. Hope you enjoyed that episode today. For more questions around this prefab housing, you know where to meet Mr. Chinelli on Instagram or his email. And we'll definitely see you next week for the next episode. Have a great week, everybody. Peace out.